Born from the union of Rhea and Cronus, the great children who would shape the world began their lives in a time when the earth was still young and the sky stretched wide and unknown. Rhea, loving and devoted, bore many splendid children to Cronus, her mighty husband, whose name echoed through the ancient lands as a ruler feared and powerful. Among these children were Hestia, the gentle goddess of the hearth, Demeter, the nurturing goddess of the fruitful earth, and Hera, the queenly goddess adorned with shining gold sandals, proud and strong. Then came Hydas, the lord of the shadowy underworld, whose realm lay far beneath the earth, where the dead found their rest, silent and distant from the light above. The earth trembled with the power of another sun, Poseidon, known as the loud crashing earth-shaker, who ruled the deep waters with his mighty trident and stirred the seas with his strength. And last of all, born with wisdom and power, came Zeus, the ruler who would one day command the sky and the heavens, whose name was spoken with awe and reverence by gods and men alike. These were the great children of Cronus, each holding a place of honor and strength in the world to come. But their birth was not without struggle. For Cronus, fearing that one of his children would rise to overthrow him as he had his own father, swallowed each child at birth, swallowing the hope and future that Rhea bore. Yet Rhea's love was fierce and cunning. She saved Zeus from this cruel fate by hiding him away in secret, protecting him from Cronus' wrath. Thus, Zeus grew in hidden strength and wisdom, prepared to face the destiny that awaited him. When the time came, Zeus would rise against his father, freeing his swallowed siblings from the dark prison within Cronus, restoring balance and order among the gods. These siblings, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hydas, and Poseidon, then stood beside Zeus, each taking their rightful place in the vast and complex order of the universe. Together, these children of Rhea and Cronus shaped the fate of gods and mortals alike. Their stories intertwined with the very fabric of the earth, sea, and sky, heralding the rise of a new age ruled by Zeus and his powerful kin. Their birth marked the beginning of great changes, the turning of the wheel of time, and the unfolding of divine rule over the world in all its endless wonders and dangers. This was the legacy of Rhea's splendid children, born into a world of chaos and bound by the will of their father, yet destined to bring forth a new order through strength, wisdom, and courage. Long ago, in the earliest days when the world was still young and the gods were forging their places in the heavens and on the earth, there lived Cronus, the mighty king of the gods, son of Gaia, the earth, and Ouranos, the starry sky. Cronus, though strong and fierce, was filled with fear and worry, for he knew from the words of his own parents that his power was not meant to last forever. He was told that just as he had overthrown his own father Ouranos and claimed the throne, so too would he be overcome by one of his own sons. This prophecy weighed heavily on Cronus' heart and mind, and from the moment his children were born, he kept watch with sharp eyes and a cruel heart. Each child that Rhea bore to him was seized without mercy and swallowed whole by their own father, doomed never to see the light of day. One after another, the proud sons and daughters of Rhea and Cronus vanished into his dark belly, swallowed down to prevent any challenge to his kingly office among the deathless gods. This endless hunger and sorrow filled Rhea with deep grief and pain, for she loved her children and could not bear to lose them one by one. Yet, when the time came for her to bear her youngest child, Zeus, the future father of gods and men, her heart burned with hope and a fierce desire to protect this child from the cruel fate that had befallen his siblings. She turned to her own dear parents, Gaia, the wide and nurturing earth, and starry Ouranos, the vast and shining sky, asking them to help her devise a plan to hide the birth of this precious son, and to ensure that the cruel Cronus would face retribution, not only for the wrongs he had done to his own father, but also for the cruel swallowing of his children. Gaia and Ouranos, loving their daughter and hearing her prayers, agreed without hesitation and revealed to her the destiny that awaited Cronus and his strong son. They guided her to the rich land of Crete, a place of wild mountains and thick forests, where she could hide away and bring forth her child in secret. There, the vast earth herself received the newborn Zeus, cradling him in her arms and nurturing him with the strength and care that only the earth could provide. Under the cover of night, Gaia swiftly carried the child to Lyctos, a remote place hidden deep within the thick woods of Mount Aegaeon. There, in a secret cave beneath the earth, safe from the watchful eyes of Cronus, Zeus was hidden and carefully raised, growing strong and wise in the darkness. To deceive Cronus, Gaia took a great stone and wrapped it tightly in swaddling clothes, making it look like a newborn child. When Cronus came to claim his next victim, he took the heavy bundle in his hands and swallowed it down without question, not knowing that the stone would lie silent and still in his belly, while Zeus, his son, remained free and unharmed. This clever trick would give Zeus the time and strength to grow and prepare for the moment when he would rise against his father, the king who had swallowed his own children, to hold on to power. Unconquered and untroubled, Zeus waited in secret, growing in wisdom and might beneath the earth, ready to fulfill the fate foretold by Gaia and Ouranos, to challenge Cronus and to bring a new order to the gods and the world they ruled. Thus, the story of the birth of Zeus is one of sorrow and hope, fear and cunning, the endless struggle between father and son, and the promise of change that would shape the future of all things under the sky. In the shadowed age when the mighty Cronus ruled as king of the gods, the prophecy from Gaia and starry Ouranos weighed heavy on his heart, that he, though strong and wily, would one day be overcome and driven from his throne by one of his own sons, a child yet unborn, but destined for greatness. This knowledge made Cronus ruthless and unyielding. He swallowed each child that Rhea bore him as soon as they came into the world, determined to keep his power unchallenged among the deathless gods. Yet the youngest son, Zeus, was spared from this terrible fate by the cunning plan of Rhea and the help of his grandmother Gaia, who hid him away in a secret cave on Mount Aegaeon in the land of Crete, far from the greedy hands of Cronus. There, protected by earth and shadow, Zeus grew in strength and wisdom, his limbs becoming strong and glorious with each passing year. Time moved steadily forward, and the mighty Cronus, though wily and cautious, was at last beguiled by the deep and clever counsels of Gaia. The Earth Mother, knowing the time had come, worked to bring about the downfall of her son Cronus by the strength and skill of his own offspring. So Cronus was forced to bring up again the children he had swallowed, defeated by the cunning and might of Zeus. First, he vomited the great stone he had swallowed last, a heavy and lifeless thing that he had mistaken for the newborn child. Zeus, seizing this stone, set it fast in the wide-pathed earth at the sacred place called Pytho, beneath the glens of Parnassos, where it would remain as a sign and a marvel for mortal men for all time to come. But the victory was far greater than just the stone's release. Zeus, now grown in power, set free the brothers of his father, the mighty Hecatoncheires, those 100-handed giants, and the Cyclopes, the one-eyed giants, who had been bound by Cronus in his foolish fear and jealousy. These powerful beings, grateful to Zeus for their freedom, bestowed upon him gifts of great power: the thunder and the glowing thunderbolt and lightning, weapons forged in the depths of the earth and hidden by the vast Gaia herself. With these mighty gifts in his hand, Zeus ruled with strength and justice over mortals and immortals alike, commanding the skies and the heavens, holding his throne among the deathless gods with the trust and power given to him by his freed allies. This tale of triumph marks the turning of the old order and the rise of a new ruler, one who would shape the fate of gods and men for all time. It is in this story that we understand the power of courage and cunning, the strength of bonds between family and earth, and the turning wheel of fate that none can escape. Among the children of Cronus and Rhea were many great gods. Hestia, the firstborn child, who was swallowed first and disgorged last, earning the title of both oldest and youngest in a strange and sacred way. Hera, born of the same union, destined to be queen and goddess of marriage and power. Each of these gods carried their own weight in the story of the world, their lives intertwined with the mighty acts of Zeus and the other immortals. It was said that the holy babe, Zeus, was hidden by the fierce and watchful Coretes, the warriors who protected him in the cave, shielding the child from harm with their clashing shields and loud cries, so that Cronus would not find him. Thus, from the deepest shadows of the earth to the wide paths of Pytho, the story of Zeus's birth, concealment, and rise marks the turning point, when the old king fell and a new ruler took the throne, armed with thunder and light, ready to lead the gods and men into a new age of power and order. In the ancient days of myth, it was widely believed among men that Zeus, the mighty king of the gods, had cast his own father, Cronus, into bonds as punishment for the wicked act of swallowing his children. Cronus, the crooked-witted and cunning ruler who had once deposed his own father, Uranus, feared the prophecy spoken by Gaia and Uranus that he would be overthrown by one of his offspring. Driven by this fear, Cronus took drastic and cruel action to prevent the prophecy from coming true. He bound the Cyclopes, those powerful one-eyed giants, confining them deep in the dark prison of Tartaros, hiding their strength away from the world. He married his sister, the strong and nurturing Rhea, and together they bore many children, each destined to play a role in the fate of gods and men. But Cronus, fearing that any of these children might rise to take his throne, swallowed each one at birth. First Hestia, the gentle goddess of the hearth, then Demeter, the goddess of the fruitful earth, followed by the queenly Hera, mighty hides who ruled the shadowy underworld, and the loud crashing earth-shaker Poseidon. Each child was devoured to prevent any threat to Cronus's rule. Yet Rhea, grieving and angered by the loss of her children, was determined to save her youngest son. When she was heavy with Zeus, the future king of gods and men, she journeyed to the wild and secret land of Crete and gave birth to him in a hidden cave on Mount Dicta. There, fierce warriors called the Coretes stood guard, banging their spears against their shields with such noise that Cronus could not hear the infant's cries and find him. To fool Cronus, Rhea wrapped a great stone in swaddling clothes and gave it to Cronus to swallow, pretending it was the newborn Zeus. This trick bought time for the child to grow safely away from his father's cruel hands. When Zeus was grown and ready to face his fate, he joined forces with Metis, the daughter of Oceanus, embodying wisdom and counsel. Together, they devised a plan to force Cronus to disgorge the children he had swallowed, and the stone he had swallowed in place of Zeus. With the help of Metis's drug, Cronus was compelled to vomit forth the heavy stone first, which Zeus set as a lasting sign in the earth at Pytho beneath Mount Parnassus, a marvel for all mortals to see. Then, one by one, his siblings emerged from Cronos' belly: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hyades, and Poseidon, free once more, restored to their places among the gods. This great act overturned the old king's rule and heralded the rise of Zeus, who trusted the mighty Hecatoncheires and Cyclopes, now freed by his hand, and who wielded the thunderbolt and lightning they bestowed upon him. Thus began a new era, shaped by the cunning, strength, and wisdom of Zeus, who united his family and ruled the heavens and earth with power and justice. These stories, sung by ancient poets like Orpheus, tell of the shifting of power among the gods, from the early reign of Ophion and Eurynome to the mighty rule of Cronos, and finally to the glorious age of Zeus. The myths speak of gods born, swallowed, hidden, and restored, of prophecy, fear, courage, and cunning, and of the endless struggle that shapes the order of the world beneath the snow-clad peaks of Olympus and beyond. In the ancient times when the world was young and the gods were yet to settle their reign, the story of Zeus's birth and early life was woven with mystery and courage, a tale told by many poets and passed down through generations. As the great Titan gods ruled the earth, it was said that Zeus was still but a child, growing quietly in his secret home, the Dictyan cave, hidden deep within the wild and fragrant lands near Mount Ida and Mount Dicte. While he was still small and filled with childish thoughts, the earth-born Cyclopes, those mighty one-eyed giants of immense power, had not yet given him the bolt, the thunder, and the lightning that would one day become his glorious weapons, the armament of his rule over gods and men. Around the hidden infant, the fierce Curetes danced their war dance, moving with powerful steps and beating their armor loudly, creating such a din that Cronos, the cruel father who devoured his children out of fear, could hear only the clash of shields and not the soft cries of the infant Zeus. This clever deception kept the young god safe from the terrible fate that had swallowed his siblings one by one. The story speaks of a time when Zeus, destined to be lord over the throne once held by Ophion, was born in secret, away from the eyes of his cruel father. His mother, the skilled and strong Rhea, had wrestled against fate itself, casting the former queen Eurynome, wife of Ophion, into the dark depths of Tartaros, and giving birth to Zeus in hidden travail. Cronos, savage and fearsome like a centaur, swallowed not the child, but a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes, a heavy substitute to trick the unholy feast-devouring father. Thus, the child grew under the care of the earth's own nymphs, Helike and Kynosura, who nurtured and protected him for a full year in a secret cave. These nymphs watched over him while the Dictyan Curetes, fierce warriors sworn to protect the child, banged their weapons and shields to mask the infant's voice and movements, ensuring that Cronos remained unaware of Zeus's presence. This time of hidden growth and protection was crucial, for it allowed Zeus to mature in safety before the moment came for him to rise and claim his place among the gods. This tale, carried by poets like Callimachus, Lycophron, Aratus, and recorded by historians such as Diodorus Siculus, reveals the deep connection between the child god, the earth, and the secret protectors who defied the fears of Cronos. It is a story of birth hidden from danger, of mighty dances and loud clashing shields masking a quiet infant's cries, and of the slow gathering of strength that would one day overturn the cruel old order. Through these ancient voices, we glimpse the beginnings of Zeus's journey, from a secret child in a dark cave, protected by nymphs and warriors, to the powerful ruler who would command thunder and lightning, rule over gods and mortals, and bring a new age of order to the world. When gods walked among mortals and the earth was ruled by mighty titans, the story of Zeus's birth and rise to power was told in many ways, each reflecting the deep mystery and great significance of this event. According to some accounts, Zeus did not seize kingship through violence or war, but was granted the throne after Cronus, his father, passed away and entered the company of the gods. In this telling, Zeus was judged worthy by custom and honor to succeed Cronus, taking his place as king in a rightful and just manner. Yet other versions of the myth tell a different tale, a tale filled with fear, cunning, and the struggle between father and son. Cronus had been warned by an oracle that one of his children would one day overthrow him and take his place as ruler. Fearing this fate, Cronus swallowed each child as soon as they were born, attempting to keep the throne and his power safe from any threat. Despite his fear and cruelty, Rhea, his wife, was filled with sorrow and grief over the loss of her children. Yet she could not change her husband's terrible plan. When she gave birth to Zeus, she hid him away in a secret place called Mount Ide or Ida, where Cronus could not find him. To protect the child, she entrusted his care to the Curetes, fierce warriors who lived on the mountain and who took on the task of raising the future king in secret. These Curetes were more than mere guardians. They created swords and helmets and performed loud and wild war dances. Their clashing shields and roaring cries made such noise that Cronus could not hear the soft sounds of the infant Zeus, and so was fooled into believing the child was not there. The nurturing of Zeus was entrusted also to the nymphs Ida and Adrasteia, who cared for him carefully, hidden from the cruel eyes of Cronus. They kept him safe for a whole year in a cave near the fragrant lands of Dicte, under the watchful protection of the Dictaean Curetes. Poets like Aratus, writing about the stars and the heavens, also tell of this secret upbringing, where the young Zeus was hidden away until the time was right for him to claim his destiny. The names of these protectors and the details of their care weave through the ancient stories, emphasizing the great effort taken to shield Zeus from harm and to prepare him for the day he would rise. Thus, in this sacred place far from the reach of Cronus, Zeus grew in strength and wisdom, nurtured by earth and sky, shielded by warriors and nymphs alike. This period of concealment and protection set the stage for the mighty struggle that would follow, when Zeus, armed with courage and divine gifts, would challenge his father and bring about a new order among gods and men. Through these ancient voices, we see the birth of a king hidden in shadow and guarded by many, the weaving of myth that tells of fear, hope, and the inevitable change that comes with time. The story of Zeus's birth is not just about a child, but about the shifting of power, the triumph of destiny, and the rise of a new age under the rule of the god of thunder and the sky. In the vast and ancient stories told by many peoples, the birth and upbringing of Zeus, the great king of gods, is wrapped in mystery, danger, and the fierce love of his mother Rhea. It was known that Cronus, his father, was a god who feared being overthrown by his own children, so he swallowed each child immediately after they were born, hoping to keep his power forever. Yet when Rhea bore Zeus, she was determined to save him from this terrible fate. She took every measure to keep her labor secret, hiding the birth and the child from the watchful eyes of Cronus. To protect Zeus, she enlisted the help of the Curetes, fierce warriors who surrounded the mother and child with loud noise, beating tambourines, clashing their weapons, and performing wild war dances. This uproar was meant to terrify Cronus and distract him, so he would not hear the infant's cries and discover his hiding place. The Curetes took the child under their care, nurturing him in secret and shielding him from his father's wrath. These protectors created a shield of sound and movement, a fierce dance that covered the quiet presence of the godchild. Some traditions even say that the Corybantes, powerful beings sometimes called sons of Cronos, were also part of these stories, linked to the protection and music that concealed Zeus. Across the lands, many peoples claim to be the birthplace and childhood home of Zeus, each telling their own versions of the tale. The Messenians, for example, said that Zeus was raised among them, nurtured by the nymphs Ithome and Neda. These nymphs bathed the young god in sacred waters, and the rivers and mountains of the land took their names from these caretakers, forever linking the geography with the myth. The fountain Clepsydra on Mount Ithome is said to have been named after the theft of the child by the Curetes, the guardians who stole him away to keep him safe. These stories show the deep connection between the god's secret upbringing and the land itself, where rivers, mountains, and springs hold the memory of Zeus's earliest days. This sacred protection, the war dances of the Curetes, and the care of the nymphs allowed Zeus to grow strong and hidden until the moment was right. His story, told by many voices and woven into the very places people lived, speaks of fear and hope, danger and protection, and the fierce will of a mother to save her child. It tells of the power of sound and movement, of ancient rituals that shielded a god destined to rule the heavens and the earth. From the hidden caves and sacred springs to the noisy dances that struck fear into Cronos, the birth and childhood of Zeus mark the beginning of a new era, an age ruled by the thunder god, whose strength and wisdom would shape the world forever. These tales, passed down through the ages, remind us that even in times of great danger, there is hope in cunning, love, and the protection of those who stand strong in the face of fear. Through them, the figure of Zeus emerges not only as a god of power, but as a child once hidden and nurtured, a symbol of new beginnings born in secrecy and raised by the earth's own guardians until he was ready to claim his rightful place among the immortals. Myths were born and gods walked close to mortals. The story of Zeus's birth and upbringing is told in many ways, each weaving a rich tapestry of sacred places, fierce protectors, and clever deceit. The Arcadians, a people of the rugged mountains and deep valleys, told of a well-named Aran, meaning lamb, near the town of Nestane. It was said that when Rhea gave birth to Poseidon, she placed him among a flock of lambs to live safely away from the grasp of Cronos, her fearful husband. To deceive Cronos, she told him she had given birth to a horse and gave him a foal to swallow, just as she later gave him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes instead of Zeus. This act of trickery, filled with deep love and courage, saved the lives of her children and set the stage for the rise of new gods who would rule the earth and sky. In another telling from the lands of Arcadia, the mountain Tamasios, called Wonderful, rises beyond the river Maloitas. Here, the people known as the Methydrians remembered that Rhea, when heavy with Zeus, came to this mountain to find allies for protection against the wrath of Cronos. She called upon Hoplodamos and the fierce Gigantes, the same beings known elsewhere as the Curetes, those warriors whose wild dances and clashing weapons would later shield the infant Zeus from danger. It was on or near Mount Lycaos, too, that Rhea gave birth to her son in secret. It is said that this was the place where Cronos was deceived, where he swallowed the stone wrapped in cloth, believing it to be the child he feared. At the summit of the mountain lies Rhea's cave, a sacred place forbidden to most, where only the women devoted to the goddess may enter. keeping the secrets of the birth hidden from the world. The connection between sacred sites and the myth of Zeus's birth runs deep through the lands of ancient Greece, showing how closely the god's stories were tied to the very earth, mountains, and springs the people knew. The dactyloi of Ida, sometimes called the Curetes, were entrusted by Rhea with the guardianship of the young god. These warriors and protectors were linked with the earth's strength, tasked with the sacred duty to shield the future king from his father's wrath. The men of the Golden Race, said to have built a temple to honor Cronus at Olympia, remembered him as the first king of heaven, showing how the old order was respected, even as it was destined to be replaced by the rule of Zeus. In temples like that of Hera at Plataea, one might see the image of Rhea carrying offerings to Cronus, recalling the deep ties of family, power, and the struggles that shaped the divine world. These stories, rich with places and people, with mountains and rivers, and with fierce protectors dancing loud to hide a quiet child, remind us that Zeus's birth was not just an event, but a sacred mystery woven into the very fabric of the land. It was a time of fear and hope, of secret hiding and bold defiance, of a mother's love strong enough to save a god destined to rule over all. Through these ancient tales, we glimpse the beginnings of a great reign, the slow unfolding of power from shadow to light, from silence to thunder, marking the birth of the god who would rule the heavens and the earth. In the ancient lands of Greece, where mountains rise and sacred stones hold the whispers of old gods, the story of Zeus's birth and the cunning that saved him is told with reverence and wonder. It is said that Cronus, fearful of losing his throne to one of his children, swallowed each child as soon as they were born, seeking to keep his rule unchallenged forever. But when Rhea gave birth to Zeus, she acted with great wisdom and courage to protect her son. To deceive Cronus, she wrapped a heavy stone in swaddling clothes and presented it to him as though it were the newborn child. Cronus, trusting the false image, swallowed the stone without knowing he had been tricked. This act of deception was remembered in many places across Greece, each holding a sacred spot where the event was said to have taken place. Near the city of Chaironeia in Boeotia, there is a rugged crag called Petrikos, where the people believed Cronus was fooled and received the stone instead of Zeus. At the summit of this mountain stands a small image of Zeus, a silent witness to the ancient tale of birth and trickery. Far away in the sacred lands of Delphi, near the famous oracular shrine, lies another stone known as the omphalos, or navel of the world. Every day, the priests poured olive oil over this stone, and during festivals they placed unworked wool upon it. Some believed this stone was the very same one given to Cronus in place of his child, and it was said that Cronus later vomited it up, freeing the earth from its weight. This stone, heavy and lifeless, became a symbol of the cunning that allowed Zeus to survive and later rise to power. Meanwhile, deep within the hidden caves of Crete, where the wild mountains touched the sky, the infant Zeus was nurtured away from his father's cruel reach. Here, a magical goat named Amalthea offered her udder to feed the young god, providing nourishment to the future king of gods and men. By the will of Rhea, a golden dog guarded this goat, standing watch to keep the child safe from harm. When Zeus grew strong enough to challenge the Titans and overthrow Cronus, he honored the goat by turning her immortal and placing her image among the stars, a shining reminder of protection and care in the heavens above. The Curetes, fierce warriors of Crete, played a vital role as the nurses and guardians of the young Zeus. They danced and clashed their weapons loudly, creating such noise that Cronus could not hear the cries of the hidden child. When Cronus eventually saw the growing Zeus, he became furious and, in his anger, transformed the first glorious protectors into wild beasts, unleashing chaos upon them. Yet the plan of the gods was strong, and through cunning and strength, Zeus triumphed over Cronus, ushering in a new age of order and power. This ancient story, told through sacred stones, mountain crags, and the wild dances of the Cretes, is not only a tale of birth and survival, but also of the deep bonds between earth, sky, and the divine. It shows how love, courage, and cleverness combine to save a child destined to rule the heavens and the earth, reminding all who hear it of the power of hope born in shadow and the rise of light that follows. The story of Zeus's birth and the fierce struggle for power begins with Cronus, known also as Saturnus, and his wife Rhea, called Ops in Roman tales. From their union were born the first gods who would shape the heavens and the earth. Vesta, known as Hestia, goddess of the hearth. Ceres, or Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Juno, or Hera, the queen of the gods. Iopater, known to us as Zeus, lord of the sky. Pluto, or Hades, ruler of the underworld. And Neptunus, or Poseidon, god of the sea. These children were destined to hold great power, but their father Cronus feared losing his kingdom to one of them. He swallowed each child as soon as they were born, seeking to keep his throne safe and secure. But when Zeus was born, his mother Rhea was filled with a fierce determination to save him. She tricked Cronus by giving him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes, pretending it was the newborn child. Cronus swallowed the stone without suspicion, unaware of the deception. When he realized he had been fooled, his rage knew no bounds. He began to hunt for Zeus across the earth, desperate to find and destroy the son who would one day rob him of his kingdom. Yet Zeus was hidden safely on the island of Crete, where his nurse Amalthea hung him in a cradle from a tree, so carefully that he could be found neither in heaven, earth, nor sea. To keep the cries of the baby from being heard and to protect him from his father's wrath, Amalthea summoned a group of youths, the Curetes, sometimes called the Corybantes, or in Italy, the Lares. These brave warriors circled the tree, clashing small bronze shields and spears, making such loud noise that Cronus could not hear the infant's voice and remained deceived. This fierce protection, a dance of shields and spears, kept the young Zeus safe until he was ready to rise and reclaim his place. It is said that, after Zeus defeated the Titans and took his rightful throne, he granted the boon to the first glorious guardians who had protected him by transforming them into powerful lions. These lions now lord over the wild beasts that roam the hills and draw the swift car of Rhea, the goddess who eases the pains of childbirth. The story of the stone itself is also woven into the sky, for some say that when Rhea pressed her breast to the stone, pretending to nurse the child, the milk that flowed formed the circle of the Milky Way, a shining band that stretches across the heavens as a reminder of that sacred moment. Thus, the myth of Zeus's birth is a story of cunning and protection, of fierce warriors and divine care, of stones wrapped in cloth and milk poured into the sky. It tells of a time when gods fought to keep their power, and a child was hidden away in secret to grow strong enough to change the world forever. This tale, told by poets and mythographers for centuries, connects the earth, the sky, and the hearts of those who believe in the power of hope and the triumph of destiny. In the ancient and powerful tales told by the poets and passed down through generations, the story of Cronus, or Saturnus as the Romans called him, and his wife Rhea, known also as Ops, unfolds with deep complexity and tragic tension. Cronos, though bound by blood to Rhea as her kin, married her out of love and desire, a union reflecting the strange and complicated ways of the gods who lived by their own laws above mortal understanding. Yet Cronos was haunted by a terrible oracle that foretold he would be overthrown by one of his own children, a prophecy that filled him with fear and desperation. In his dread, he swallowed each child as soon as they were born, entombing them in his bowels, seeking to hold his power forever and prevent the prophecy from coming true. Rhea, his wife, felt deep sorrow and longing, for though she bore many children, she knew none would live to be raised by her hand. She mourned the fruitfulness that brought her no motherhood, the pain of pregnancy without the joy of holding her sons and daughters. When Zeus, the youngest, was born, the story tells us, trusting the old beliefs and the voices of antiquity, that Rhea tricked Cronos by giving him a stone wrapped in cloth instead of the newborn child, a stone that settled in his gullet, leaving him to believe he had swallowed his son. This clever deception saved the infant Zeus, who was hidden away on steep Mount Ida, where the clanging noise of the curetes or corybantes, fierce guardians, thundered continuously to cover the quiet wails of the godchild. They pounded shields and empty helmets with sticks, creating a mighty din so the truth could remain hidden from the ears of the hungry father. The names of the gods and goddesses born from this divine union are many and revered. Hera, Juno to the Romans, the queen of the gods; Demeter, or Ceres, goddess of the harvest; and Hestia, known as Vesta, the sacred keeper of the hearth, each child born in sequence but swallowed by fear and then hidden by love. The spirit of deceit, Apate, was said to be invoked by Hera in later myths, who called upon the cunning girdle once bound by Rhea herself to deceive her husband, showing how the theme of trickery and survival was woven tightly into the fabric of these divine stories. Beyond these personal struggles, the history of the cosmos itself was inscribed by the primordial god Phanes on ancient tablets, recording all deeds of power and change, including the acts of Cronos when he cut off the power of his own father, Ouranos, the sky god. These ancient events set the stage for the cosmic drama of birth, betrayal, and the rise of new rulers, with Zeus emerging from hidden infancy to challenge the old king and shape the world anew. In these narratives, steeped in metaphor and mystery, we see not only the fearful grip of power, but also the cunning and bravery that break the cycle. The sound of shields clashing to hide the cries of a child destined for greatness, and the eternal laws by which gods and men alike must live. This story of Cronos and Rhea, of swallowing and deception, of mountains echoing with the dance of protectors, forms the bedrock of a myth that has echoed through time, reminding us of the struggle between fear and hope, between the old order and the new, and the power of a hidden child who would one day rule the heavens and the earth. In the vast tapestry of ancient myth, the tale of Cronos, the mighty Titan who swallowed his own children, and the cunning deception that saved Zeus, is woven with vivid images and powerful symbols that echo through time. Cronos, having overthrown his father Uranos by severing his mighty male plowshare and sowing the sea with the seed of the sky god, was himself destined to be overthrown by his offspring. Bound by this terrible fate, Cronos swallowed each child born of his union with Rhea, intending to keep his throne safe and unchallenged. But Rhea, known also as Cybele or Cybele in some stories, acted with profound craftiness to protect her youngest son Zeus. Instead of surrendering him to Cronos' devouring maw, she fashioned a substitute, a heavy stone shaped and wrapped to resemble an infant, a mock child wrought by the artist's hand to deceive the father. This stone, spiky and heavy, was swallowed by Cronos as though it were his newborn son, a stony meal that filled his throat but held no life. While the Titan labored with the burden of this false child inside him, the real Zeus was hidden away in a secret cavern, nurtured and protected by the Curetes, fierce guardians who danced wildly with shields in hand, their clanging brass echoing against the rocks and maddening the air. Their noisy war dance was no mere celebration, but a deliberate act to conceal the silent cries and infancy of Zeus from the all-hearing Cronos, who dwelled high among the clouds. The dance and the shield clashing were the shield's drumbeats masking the new life, a desperate effort to outwit a father intent on destruction. The stone played a remarkable role as midwife to the imprisoned children, for it was the last thing Cronos swallowed, but the first he disgorged when Zeus, grown strong and clever, forced the Titan to vomit up his swallowed offspring. This act was both symbolic and literal. The stone, the counterfeit body of a pretended Zeus, held the place of the true son and bore the burden of the imprisoned children until the moment of their release. It was a symbol of deception, survival, and hope, a hard and heavy symbol that finally brought forth the change of ages. The myth also tells of the storm-foot Hora, the season who witnessed the fiery and shining victory of Zeus at war. The hailstorm and snowstorm of battle that marked the conflict between the old king Cronos and the new ruler Zeus. This victory was more than a mere struggle for power. It was a cosmic turning point, recorded in the timeless tablets of the primordial god Phanes, the history inscribed in endless past and eternal future. The shield of Dionysus bore images of Cybele or Rhea, holding the mock child to her bosom, symbolizing the cunning that saved Zeus and the suffering of the mother, forced to deceive her husband. Cronos appears again and again as the father who devoured his young, a monstrous figure of hunger and fear, yet also as the laboring Titan burdened with the stone inside him, forced to bring forth the children he swallowed in a terrible act of release. This myth, rich in metaphor and vivid in imagery, shows how the fierce love of a mother, the wild dance of protectors, and the power of deception combined to preserve the life of the god who would rule the heavens and the earth. It is a story of darkness and light, of swallowing and disgorging, of falsehood used to protect truth, and of the eternal cycle of birth, destruction, and rebirth that shapes the cosmos and the divine. The role of the Curetes, fierce guardians of the infant Zeus, is told with vivid detail, revealing their crucial part in the god's secret survival. These warriors performed a wild Pyrrhic dance high on Mount Ida, raising a powerful noise that rang sharply in the ears of Cronos, the fearful father who swallowed his children to keep his throne. The clash of sword on shield was no mere battle cry, but a valiant and deliberate din meant to deceive Cronos, masking the hidden nurturing of young Zeus in a secret cave. Among these guardians was the Corete named Akhmon, who carried a shield not just for battle, but as a cradle in which baby Zeus often slept, safely protected among the wild mountains. This cave, humble and hidden, became the god's first home, where the sacred goat Amalthea played the nurse, offering her milky udder to the child. Cleverly, the goat allowed Zeus to suckle strange milk, nourishing the infant in his mysterious infancy. The Curetes' relentless noise, the shaking of shields and the clanging of tumbling steel, covered the faint cries of the hidden child, their clanging providing a shield of sound that allowed Rhea to deceive Cronos by wrapping a stone in swaddling clothes and giving it to him to swallow instead of his son Zeus. This stone of deceit became a symbol of cunning and survival, a heavy meal Cronos took unknowingly, as the true child grew strong and safe beyond his grasp. The myth also speaks of the golden age of men, the golden race, born in the image of the gods and rooted deep in the earth, dwelling in the ancient city of Baro, a place said to have been built by Cronus himself. It was during this time when clever Rhea tricked Cronus by giving him that jagged stone that the Titan unwittingly became the deliverer of his own children. With the heavy weight of the stone in his belly, Cronus endured great pains, as if swallowing a raging flood or storming river to ease his torment. But in truth, this burden forced him to open his throat wide and disgorge the imprisoned gods he had swallowed. One after another, through the delivering channel of his gullet, his sons and daughters were pushed up and freed, reborn through a painful but necessary passage from his belly. Among these children was still a baby Zeus, a child not yet flashing lightning across the skies or wielding thunderbolts to cleave hot clouds. This stage of infancy was quiet, hidden, and full of promise, marking the beginning of the end for Cronus's fearful reign and the rise of the new king who would rule over gods and men alike. Thus, the story reveals how the wild dance of the Curetes, the nurturing care of the sacred goat, the clever deception with the stone, and the ultimate release of the swallowed gods, all combined in a powerful narrative of survival, rebirth, and the shifting of cosmic power from one generation to the next, told in simple yet profound terms that echo across the ages. Family of Zeus, divine offspring. Divine offspring have always held a special place in the tales of gods and mortals, and among them is Agdistis, a remarkable being born in an extraordinary way. Agdistis was a hermaphroditic god, meaning this divine figure possessed both male and female characteristics, which made Agdistis unique and unlike any other. This god was born when Zeus, the mighty king of the gods, unintentionally impregnated Gaia, the earth herself. This event was unusual and surprising even to the gods, for Gaia was the very foundation of the world, the solid ground beneath all living things. The birth of Agdistis brought a strange power and presence into the divine family, and the gods, frightened by this strange and powerful creature, decided to act. They feared what Agdistis could do because having both male and female traits made Agdistis a force that was hard to understand and control. So in their fear and caution, the gods chose to castrate Agdistis, removing the parts that made this god hermaphroditic. This act was meant to lessen the power and unpredictability of Agdistis, to make the god less threatening to the order of the divine world. After this drastic change, Agdistis transformed into the goddess Cybele. Cybele then became known as a powerful mother goddess, connected with nature, fertility, and wild places, but always carrying the memory of Agdistis's unusual and powerful origin. Both Agdistis and Cybele, as well as their parents, were originally worshipped as Phrygian gods. The Phrygians were an ancient people whose gods were later identified and linked with Greek gods, blending their stories and worship. This blending shows how myths and gods could change and grow, borrowing from one culture to another, growing more complex and interconnected over time. Alongside Agdistis and Cybele, there was another divine child, Aegipan, also known as Aegipan. Aegipan was a rustic god, meaning he was connected to the countryside and the wild natural world far from the cities and temples. He was the son of Zeus, like many divine children, but his mother was Aix or Boetis, who was known as the wife of Pan, the god of the wild, shepherds, and flocks. Aegipan's story is less famous than some others, but his connection to Zeus and the wild world made him a figure of importance among gods who were close to nature and the earth. The rustic gods, like Aegipan, were often seen as helpers or protectors of animals and the forests, living between the world of humans and the great gods on Mount Olympus. Among the daughters of Zeus was Amalthea, the goddess of truth. Being a goddess of truth, Amalthea represented honesty and the clear, open way that truth shines, cutting through lies and darkness. Truth was an important idea for gods and mortals alike, and Amalthea's role was to remind all beings of the power and necessity of truth in life and in the universe. Her presence was a divine force that brought light to the hidden and revealed the real. Another daughter of Zeus was Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Though many stories tell different versions of her birth, according to some traditions, Aphrodite was a daughter of Zeus, born from his union with other divine forces. Aphrodite embodied love in all its forms: desire, beauty, attraction, and the deep bonds that connect people and gods. She was a powerful goddess who could inspire feelings that moved the hearts of gods and humans alike. Her influence spread far and wide, shaping lives and stories with the power of love and attraction. Thus, from the great king Zeus came many divine children, each with their own place and power in the world of gods and mortals. Some, like Augustus, had strange and frightening beginnings, but grew into important deities with deep connections to nature and the earth. Others, like Egipan, belonged to the wild, rustic world, helping to guard the natural places where humans and gods could meet. Goddesses like Amalthea brought important ideas like truth into the world, while Aphrodite carried the power of love that shaped much of life and myth. Each divine offspring carried part of Zeus's power and influence, but also brought their own unique gifts, stories, and meanings to the rich tapestry of the divine world. Their births, lives, and transformations were stories that helped explain the mysteries of the world and the connections between gods, nature, and humans. These gods and goddesses were not just distant figures in the sky, but active parts of life, nature, and the stories people told about their place in the universe. Through these divine offspring, the power of Zeus spread far and wide, shaping the myths and beliefs of many generations to come. Among the many divine children born of Zeus, each had their own unique origin and role within the world of gods and mortals, creating a vast and intricate family that shaped much of ancient myth and belief. One such figure was Dione, often described as a Titaness, and sometimes said to be a daughter of Zeus, though most stories tell a different tale of her birth. According to the more common accounts, Dione was not born from Zeus, but came into being in a more mysterious way. She was born from the severed genitals of Ouranos, the sky god, after his violent overthrow. This connection tied her closely to the primal forces of the universe, and she was revered as a goddess with deep ancient roots. Among the more well-known children of Zeus was Apollon, or Apollo, the god of music, prophecy, and healing. Apollo was born from the union of Zeus and the Titaness Leto, a powerful goddess who carried him and his twin sister Artemis through difficult times. Apollo was a god who represented many important aspects of life and the divine, holding the power to inspire music that could soothe or rouse, the gift of prophecy that allowed insight into the future, and healing abilities that could mend wounds and illness. Apollo's birth was celebrated, and his influence spread widely as his talents touched the lives of gods and humans alike. Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, was another daughter of Zeus and Leto. She was the goddess of hunting and the protectress of young girls. Artemis was often seen as a strong and fierce goddess who cared deeply for nature and those who were vulnerable or just beginning life's journey. As a goddess of the hunt, she was connected to the wild forests and animals, guiding hunters and guarding the balance between life and death in nature. Her role as protector of young girls made her a symbol of safety and care during the delicate years of growth and learning. Another figure tied to Zeus was Asopos, the god of the river Asopos in Argos, a region in southern Greece. There are different stories about his origins. Some say he was a son of Zeus and Eurynome, linking him to the great Olympian king, while most accounts say he was actually the son of Okeanos and Tethys, ancient sea deities. Regardless of his parentage, Asopos was connected deeply to the natural world, embodying the life-giving waters of the river that bore his name. Rivers were crucial to life in the ancient world, and gods like Asopos were seen as powerful and sacred forces shaping the land and supporting life. Ate was a goddess associated with blind folly and ruin, bringing destruction often caused by reckless decisions or madness. Some traditions say she was a daughter of Zeus, born from his power and perhaps his mistakes, while other stories claim she came into existence fatherless, born from Eris, the goddess of strife. Ate's role in myth was to show how even gods and mortals could fall victim to foolishness, and how ruin could come suddenly and without warning, driven by forces beyond understanding. Athene, or Athena, was one of the most famous and revered daughters of Zeus, known as the goddess of warcraft, wisdom, and craft. Her birth was extraordinary and unlike any other. Athena sprang directly from the head of Zeus, fully grown and armored, a symbol of her deep connection to the mind and intellect of her father. Before she was born, Zeus had swallowed her mother, the Titanomachy, who was pregnant with Athena. This unusual birth showed the close bond between Athena and Zeus, and her role as a goddess of wisdom and strategy made her a guiding force for heroes and gods alike. Britomartis, a lesser-known goddess, was connected to hunting and fishing nets, symbolizing the skills and tools used to provide food and survive in the wild. She was a daughter of Zeus and the nymph Carme, linking her to both divine power and the natural world. Britomartis's presence in myth showed the importance of balance between skill, nature, and survival. Dike was the goddess of justice, one of the three Horai, the goddesses, who represented the natural order and seasons. She was a daughter of Zeus and the Titaness Themis, herself a figure of divine law and order. As the goddess of justice, Dike stood for fairness and balance in the world, reminding gods and humans of the importance of right and wrong, and the need to uphold law to keep peace and harmony. Dionysos, the god of wine and debauchery, was another son of Zeus, born from the mortal Semele. In some rare and unorthodox accounts, he is said to be the son of Zeus and either Demeter or Dione, showing how his story could vary across traditions. Dionysos represented celebration, wildness, and the breaking of rules, bringing both joy and chaos. His birth and life stories revealed the complex nature of divine power, capable of both creation and destruction. Amalthea was the goddess of childbirth, born to Zeus and Hera, his wife. She had a crucial role in the lives of mortals, helping mothers bring new life into the world safely. Amalthea's presence was a comfort and blessing, showing the gods' care for the human experience and the cycle of life. Irene, also known as Irun, was the goddess of peace and another of the three Horai, daughters of Zeus and Themis. She symbolized calm, rest, and the hope that follows conflict, representing the desire for harmony among gods and mortals. Her role was essential in stories that moved from war to peace, highlighting the cycles that shape existence. Eris, the goddess of strife and warfare, was sometimes said to be a daughter of Zeus and Hera. but most stories give her birth to Nyx, the night itself. Eris brought discord and conflict, a necessary but dangerous force that stirred the lives of gods and humans, challenging peace and order. Ursa was a gentle goddess of the dew, born to Zeus and the Titaness Selene, the moon goddess. Dew was a small but vital part of nature, watering plants and refreshing the earth. Ursa's presence was a quiet reminder of the delicate care the gods gave to the natural world. Eunomia, the goddess of good governance, was one of the Horai as well, a daughter of Zeus and Thymus. She stood for lawful and fair rule, ensuring that societies and cities were run justly, and that people lived under order and fairness. Her role showed the divine interest in the organization and peace of human communities. Harmonia, the goddess of harmony, was said by one author to be a daughter of Zeus, though her story is told in different ways. She embodied the balance and unity that brings peace and beauty to the world, the fitting together of parts to make a whole. Each of these divine children carried a part of Zeus's power and presence, but also brought their own special gifts and meanings to the universe. Their births, origins, and roles reveal how the ancient Greeks understood the complex forces of life, from truth and justice to strife and celebration, from nature's smallest details like dew to great powers like war and wisdom. Together, these gods and goddesses formed a vast family whose stories shaped the world, guiding humans and gods through the mysteries of existence and the cycles of life. Through them, Zeus's influence touched every part of the cosmos, blending power, order, and the wild unpredictability of life itself into the great tapestry of myth. Zeus, the mighty king of the gods, fathered many divine children with various goddesses and mortal women, each with their own stories and powers, forming a vast and complex family that shaped the ancient world's understanding of the divine. One such child was Electra, known as one of the Pleiades, the seven sisters who were nymphs or minor goddesses often connected to stars. In some stories, Electra was considered a daughter of Zeus and the Pleiad Maia, while the more usual account made her a daughter of Ares and Aphrodite, though she was fostered by the Pleiad. This connection to different gods showed how stories could change but still linked Electra to both the warrior and love gods through Ares and Aphrodite, while also placing her among the celestial sisters. Hebe was another daughter of Zeus and Hera, the goddess of youth. She was important because youth was a divine quality that kept gods and mortals strong and vibrant. Hebe's presence reminded all beings of the energy and freshness that life could hold, and she was often seen as the cupbearer to the gods, serving them nectar and ambrosia to keep their immortality and vigor. Hephaistos, the god of smiths and fire, was, according to some stories, a son of Zeus and Hera, though many accounts said Hera conceived him alone, without Zeus. Hephaistos was the divine craftsman, the god who made powerful weapons and beautiful works for gods and heroes alike. His role was crucial in myth because he represented skill, creativity, and the hard work needed to shape the world's tools and wonders. Hermes, another son of Zeus, was the god of merchants, shepherds, and messengers. His mother was the Pleiad Maia, one of the starry nymph sisters. Hermes was a swift and clever god, able to move between worlds carrying messages and guiding souls, protecting travelers and those who worked with trade and animals. His many roles showed how the gods cared for everyday life, commerce, and communication. The Horai, also called the Horai, were three goddesses of the seasons and natural order named Dike, Irene, and Eunomia. They were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Themis, who represented law and order. These goddesses stood for justice, peace, and good governance, each playing a vital role in maintaining balance and harmony in the world. Their presence reminded gods and mortals alike that life moved in cycles and that fairness and peace were essential for survival and prosperity. The Kaberoi, gods connected to the mysteries of Samothraca, were sometimes said to be sons of Zeus and the muse Calliope. However, most stories claimed they were sons of Hephaestos and Kabero, showing how their origins could vary but always linked to divine power and mystery. These gods were part of secret religious rites, holding hidden knowledge and spiritual power. Kairos, or Ceres, was known as the god of opportunity and was the youngest divine son of Zeus. His figure symbolized the right moment, the chance that must be taken before it slips away. Kairos was a reminder that timing and seizing chances were crucial in life and fate. The Kentauroi Kirpioi, or Cyprian centaurs, were a special tribe of centaurs native to the island of Kypros, or Cyprus, in the eastern Mediterranean. These half-human, half-horse creatures were said to have sprung from Gaia, the earth, when Zeus accidentally impregnated her in a failed attempt to make love to Aphrodite. This unusual birth linked these wild creatures directly to the earth and the gods, showing how divine forces could create strange and powerful beings in unexpected ways. The Carites, also known as the Charites or Graces, were three goddesses of grace, beauty, and mirth named Aglaia, Euphrosyne, and Thaleia. They were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Eurynome, bringing joy, charm, and delight to the world. Their presence was a celebration of life's beauty and the happiness that came from harmony and kindness. The Corybantes Samothracioi were orgiastic demigods connected to the Samothracian mysteries and were sometimes described as sons of Zeus and the muse Calliope. These figures were part of wild, ecstatic rituals that brought powerful spiritual energy and transformation. The Latai, elderly goddesses of prayer, were also daughters of Zeus. They represented the humble and respectful prayers of mortals, showing how even the gods listened to the voices of those who sought help and guidance. Melino was a fearsome goddess of the underworld, whose body was half black and half white, symbolizing the mix of light and darkness, life and death. She was a daughter of Zeus and Persephone, connecting her to the powerful and mysterious world beneath the earth where souls journeyed after death. The Moirai, or Fates, were three goddesses of fate and destiny named Atropos, Lachesis, and Clotho. According to some traditions, they were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Themis, while others said they came from Nyx, the night, Ananke, necessity, or even chaos itself. These goddesses controlled the thread of life, deciding the fate of gods and mortals alike, weaving the past, present, and future into the great pattern of existence. The Musai, or Muses, were divine daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Mnemosyne, representing memory. They inspired art, poetry, music, and knowledge, encouraging creativity and the passing down of stories through generations. Together, all these children of Zeus formed a powerful and varied family, each playing a role in the stories that explained the world and the forces at work within it. From the youthful Hebe who kept the gods strong, to the wise and skilled Hephaestos and Hermes, to the goddesses of seasons and fate, each carried part of Zeus's immense power and influence. Their origins, sometimes clear and sometimes mysterious, reflected the many ways the Greeks understood life, nature, and the divine. Through their stories, the world was given meaning, order, and wonder, woven by the hands of these divine offspring born of Zeus, the king of the gods. The 9 muses, goddesses of music and song, were daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Mnemosyne, each holding a special place in the arts and inspiring poets, musicians, and all who sought beauty and knowledge through creative expression. Their names, Calliope, Terpsichore, Clio, Euterpe, Urania, Thalia, Polyhymnia, Melpomene, and Erato, each represented different aspects of the arts, from epic poetry and dance to history and love songs, weaving the threads of culture and memory into the human world. Alongside them was Nemea, a minor goddess nymph born of Zeus and the Titaness Selene, the goddess of the moon. Nemea's presence linked the divine with the natural world, embodying the gentle but powerful spirit of a nymph connected to both celestial and earthly realms. In many tales, nymphs in general were sometimes considered daughters of Zeus, reflecting their close ties to nature and the divine, often acting as spirits of trees, rivers, and other natural places. Among the nymphs were the Nymphae Themides, three goddess nymph daughters of Zeus and the Titaness Themis, the embodiment of divine law and order. These nymphs represented the blending of natural beauty with the structure and justice brought forth by their mother, showing how the gods sought balance in all things. The Palikoi were twin gods of the geysers of Palikoi in Sicily, located in southern Italy. According to some stories, they were sons of Zeus and Thalia, while others said they were children of Hephaistos and Aetna. These twin gods were linked to the natural forces of the earth, especially volcanic activity and the mysterious power of geysers, symbols of the earth's hidden energy and strength. Pan, the god of shepherds, was said by one author to be a son of Zeus and Hybris, though most stories named Hermes as his father. Pan was a wild and free spirit, connected to the forests, shepherds, and the music of nature. His presence showed how even the most rustic and natural parts of life were touched by divine power. Pandia, another minor goddess nymph, was also a daughter of Zeus and the Titaness Selene, adding to the many divine children born from the moon goddess, who represented both light and mystery. Persephone, the goddess of the underworld and spring renewal, was a daughter of Zeus and Demeter, the goddess of the harvest and fertility. In some accounts, Persephone was said to be the daughter of Zeus and Styx, the goddess of the sacred river of the underworld. Persephone's story was one of death and rebirth, as she moved between the worlds of the living and the dead, bringing renewal to the earth with each spring. Phasis, the god of the river Phasis in Colchis near the eastern Black Sea, was according to some accounts a son of Zeus, while others claimed he was born of Okeanos and Tethys, ancient sea gods who fathered many river gods. Rivers like Phasis were vital to life and civilization, and their gods were respected for their power over the land and water. Zagreus was a divine son of Zeus and his own daughter Persephone, born into a complex and tragic story. Zagreus was slain by the Titans, but Zeus saved the child's heart and gave it to Semele. From this heart, Zagreus was reborn as the god Dionysus, symbolizing death and rebirth, destruction and creation. This story connected Zagreus and Dionysus closely, showing the cycles of life, death, and transformation that lay at the heart of the divine world. Through all these children, Zeus's power and presence spread across many aspects of life, nature, and the mysteries of existence. The Muses inspired art and memory, linking the divine to human creativity. The nymphs connected the gods to the natural world, while deities like Persephone and Zagreus showed the deep ties between life, death, and rebirth. From rivers to volcanic geysers, from shepherds to the seasons, the divine offspring of Zeus touched every corner of the world and every moment of life, weaving their stories into the vast and eternal tapestry of myth.